Hi, this is Ryan Falk, and this is my informative speech for the Bismarck State College Fundamentals of Public Speaking class, and this is my captive audience. Whether or not you own a gun, at some point you, your child or friend, or someone you know will come in contact with a firearm. The most dangerous situations come from people who are not knowledgeable about firearms and firearm safety. Some of those outcomes end up on the news and have devastating results. Fortunately, there's a fix: informing people of the safety rules so they have the knowledge needed to safely handle a firearm. One of my favorite pastimes is target shooting. My wife and I have our own guns and enjoy the sport. We also have 3 children that enjoy shooting, but before they're allowed to handle a gun, they must learn to respect them and learn how to safely operate them, with our supervision, of course. The rules for them are no different than the rules for adults, and that adults should follow as well. There are many firearm safety rules or commandments of safety, but I will focus on the top 4. Rule number 1, always treat a gun like it's loaded. This rule is an overall mindset that is crucial to have in order to prevent accidental shootings. It discourages reasoning along the lines of, I know my gun is unloaded, so it's okay if I wave it around in the air or point at another person. The mindset that the gun is always loaded will make sure that you respect the firearm and make decisions as if the gun is loaded. Many firearm accidents happen from the handler mistakenly believing a firearm is emptied, safety, or otherwise disabled when in fact it is ready to be discharged. According to Bryce Towsley, in his Gunsmithing Made Easy book, if a handler always treats firearms as capable of being discharged at any time, the handler is more likely to take precautions to prevent an unintentional discharge and to avoid damage or injury if one does occur. End quote. Rule number 2, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. According to the NRA's website, this is the primary rule of gun safety. A safe direction means that the gun is pointed so that even if it were to go off, it would not cause injury or damage. The key to this rule is to control where the muzzle or front of the barrel is pointed at all times. Common sense dictates the safest direction depending on different circumstances. End quote. This direction could be in the air, towards the ground, or at the downrange position while shooting. This rule is intended to minimize the damage caused by an unintended discharge. The first rule teaches that a firearm must be assumed to be ready to be fired, but this rule goes beyond that and says, since the firearm might fire, assume that it will and make sure no harm occurs when it does. Part of this rule is that any kind of playing or toying with firearms is prohibited. Playful pointing of firearms at people or other non-targets violates this rule and is an extreme endangerment to life and or property. To discourage this kind of behavior, the rule is sometimes stated as, never point a firearm at anything unless you intend to shoot it. In cases where the firearm is being handled indoors, it is important to have a designated safe direction. For example, in shooting ranges, it would be downrange into a backstop. Rule number 3, always keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. When holding a gun, rest your finger on the trigger guard or along the side of the gun until you are actually ready to fire. Do not touch the trigger. Lynn Bates, in the article Gun Safety and Self-Defense, reiterates the point: always keep your finger off the trigger and against the side of the gun until your sights are on the target and you have made the decision to shoot. End quote. This rule is intended to prevent an undesired discharge. Normally, a firearm is discharged by pulling its trigger. A handler's finger may involuntarily move for any of several reasons. The handler is startled, not paying attention to your body, stumbling or falling, or the finger being pushed by something. Handlers are taught to minimize the harmful effects of pulling the trigger unintentionally by keeping the finger off the trigger until the muzzle is pointing at the target and the handler is ready to discharge the firearm. A properly placed trigger finger also helps remind the person holding the firearm of the direction of the muzzle. Rule number 4, keep the action open and the gun unloaded until you're ready to shoot. According to an NRA article, whenever you pick up a gun, immediately engage the safety device if possible, and if the gun has a magazine, remove it before opening the action and looking into the chamber, which should be clear of ammunition. If you do not know how to open the action or inspect the chambers, leave the gun alone and get help from someone who does. End quote. Doing this will help you ensure that there is not a bullet in the gun and that the gun cannot discharge unintentionally. In addition to these 4 main safety rules, when using or storing a firearm, there are a few additional things to take into consideration. Know your target and what is beyond. According to Remington Firearms' website, you can't stop a shot in midair, so do not fire unless you know exactly where your shot is going and what it will strike. Never fire at a sound, a movement, or a patch of color. A hunter in camouflage can easily be mistaken for a target by an impulsive shooter. Before you pull the trigger, be absolutely sure of your target and what's behind it. Make sure your shot has a backstop such as a hillside or dense material like sand. Remember, bullets can travel distances with tremendous velocity. Know how far your shot will go if you miss your target or the bullet ricochets." End quote. Be absolutely sure you have identified your target beyond any doubt. Equally important, be aware of the area beyond your target. This means observing your prospective area of fire before you shoot. Never fire in a direction which there are people or any other potential for mishap. Think first, shoot second. Next, know how to use the gun safely. Before handling a gun, learn how it operates, know its basic parts, how to safely open and close the action, and remove any ammunition from the gun or magazine. Remember, a gun's mechanical safety device is never foolproof. Nothing can replace safe gun handling. Next, be sure the gun is safe to operate. Just like other tools, guns need regular maintenance to remain operable. Regular cleaning and proper storage are part of the gun's general upkeep. If there is any question concerning a gun's ability to function, a knowledgeable gunsmith should be looked at. Only use the correct ammunition for your gun. Only BBs, pellets, cartridges, or shells designed for a particular gun can be fired safely in that gun. Most guns have the ammunition type stamped on the barrel. Ammunition can be identified by information printed on the box and sometimes stamped on the cartridge. Do not shoot the gun unless you know you have the proper ammunition. Next, wear eye and ear protection as appropriate. Guns are loud and the noise can cause hearing damage. They can also emit debris and hot gas that could cause eye injury. For these reasons, shooting glasses and hearing protectors should be worn by shooters and spectators. Next, never use alcohol or over-the-counter prescription or other drugs before or while shooting. Alcohol, as well as any other substance likely to impair normal mental or physical bodily functions, must not be used before or while handling or shooting guns. Next, store guns so they are not accessible to unauthorized persons. Many factors must be considered when deciding where and how to store guns. A person's particular situation will be a major part of the consideration. Dozens of gun storage devices, as well as locking devices that attach directly to the gun, are available. However, mechanical locking devices like the mechanical safeties built into guns can fail and should not be used as a substitute for safe gun handling and the observation of all gun safety rules. Firearms can be fun to shoot and offer great protection when handled using these important safety guidelines.